Now, as most of you have probably heard by now, as I mentioned over there in the monologue area, quiet time I call it, the XFL was canceled yesterday. It's a big story. NBC and the WWF reportedly lost over $50 million, creating a football league nobody wanted. It's really hilarious. And anyway, now they've decided to cut their losses. This decision came as a particular shock to the men and women building the massive XFL Hall of Fame in downtown Chicago. They've really been hard at work at this thing. Take a look.
Excuse me, sir, have you heard the XFL's been canceled?
You gotta be kidding me. So I'm losing my carpenter job and my football player job. That's just great.
They use people from other walks of life to play football. You know, as I just mentioned, NBC lost over $50 million thanks to the XFL. I intend to mention that a lot throughout the course of the evening, because I've lost the will to live. Anyway, they lost over $50 million thanks to the XFL, and guess who's paying the price for that $50 million loss? Guess who pays for that? You think the primetime shows? You think Friends has to cough up that $50 million? I don't think so. I'm just talking to no one in particular. I'm like a street person now. And who has to? Huh? Oh, no one there. Anyway, the people that have to pay the $50 million, where they go and they get the money, us, right here. That's right, this show. True story. NBC is slashing budgets left and right, and to cut their losses. They just want to, you know, make sure that they have to pay less. They're forcing all those budget cuts on poor little late night. We have to cough up the dough. Thank you. I'm glad we have a go-aw sign. Anyway, I thought we'd take a few minutes right now to show you how these unfortunate NBC budget cuts have affected our show. In a little segment we like to call How These Unfortunate NBC Budget Cuts Have Affected Our Show. Why was there a Chinese gong at the end of that? I think that's where they're making up some of the money, too. No more good sound cues. All right, NBC, folks, is already out of control with the budget cuts. True story. If you look at this set, everything looks pretty cool. It looks like a sexy set. It looks pretty snazzy and neat. I just want to show you a couple of things. First of all, the pencils that are in my Eisenhower mug every night. Check this out. This is pathetic. They won't even let me... We can only get half pencils from now on. I always have, like, Coke or Pepsi in my little cup right here. Take a look at this right here. Look at that. NBC is so cheap they couldn't even spring for a real desk. They sold my wooden desk, and then I've got this thing right now. Look at this thing. It's just ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It's insane that this is a desk now. That's my desk? That's ridiculous. I'm a talk show host. It looked like Bavarian chocolate for a second. You know, here's another item we've already been forced to cut back on. Guests. Seriously, when guests appear on the show, we have to pay them. I don't know if you knew that, but we had to pay the guests. And unfortunately, when you have a lot of guests, that can get very expensive. So lately, we've been asking guests to help us out by doing double duty. Take a look. That's a terrific story. Hey, George, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for being with
It's always great having you on the show. George Foreman, everybody. We're going to take a break. When we come back, comedian Carrot Top is going to join us. We'll see you in a second. George was funny that night. He was hilarious that night, wasn't he?
Great.
He had a hilarious hunk. Here at Late Night, we keep a tape library of all our shows, but that has become very expensive. NBC has gotten rid of our entire video archive, all the shows, and replaced it with one guy who's memorized every single episode of Late Night. So now when we need to research one of our old shows, we just ask this guy. His name is Pat Simpkin. Let's get him out here. Hey, Pat, you out? There you go. So, let me understand, Pat, you've memorized every episode of this show.
Yeah, pretty much. You can go ahead and ask me about any episode.
All right. What about show 117?
117. Let's see, there was some dude from that show Dear John was on, one of those dudes. Some author, there was an author guy who was on the show. That was a bad show, man. It was a pretty bad show, yeah.
Okay, what about show number, like, 680?
680. Man, that was a rough show, man. You had a real bad show that night. Ouch, that was bad.
All right, well,
Bad
Pat,
show.
let's move on. What about show, like, 1,300?
No, man, you know what? You should forget anything in the 1300s. They were all awful. Awful shows.
Thanks, Pat. You're doing a great job. Pat
All right.
Simkin, everybody. He's a good man. The 1300s, those were rough. You know, most people don't realize the enormous cost associated with playing music on a show such as ours. Every time the band plays even a small part of a famous song, huge royalties have to be paid out to the original writer, whether it's the Beatles or the Who or the Rolling Stones, whatever. That's why a few days ago, we tried cutting corners by only having the band play one note. I don't know if it worked. Check it out. You think it works? It works. I'll use it from now on. You know, folks, with so many budget cuts, we've been trying to come up with some ways to actually make some money back. Well, one way that's kind of working for us is by renting our studio floor space as a place for wealthy Asian businessmen to sleep. Say hello to tonight's guest, microprocessing tycoon Ikiro Nakamura. That took a lot longer than it had to. You know, many of you probably know that our director and crew, they communicate with each other using headsets, much like this one. That's how they talk to each other. That, you know, the director's in the booth and the cameramen are out here. That way, no one else hears and there's no distraction. Unfortunately, to save money, NBC asked us to do some shows without headsets and with the director out here on the floor talking to all the camera people. And we tried it, and it was a little distracting. Take a look.
Get him to hold the book up. Ready, one, take one. Ready, two.
I got the book.
Ready, two, take two. Ready, one, take one.
Mostly,
9.
Take one. Push one, push in.
I got the guy.
Ready, two.
Just shut the up! Come on! Shut up! So, it's a good book. It's a good book. I thought that needed to be said. Finally, even though we've taken all these cost-cutting measures just today, NBC demanded we let one more staff member go. They say we have to. Now, we thought a diplomatic way to do this would be to have you, the audience, vote on who should get fired and who should get to keep their job. We've narrowed it down to 2 candidates. And based on your applause, one will be allowed to continue working at late night, one will have to pack their bags. Let's meet candidate number 1. Her name is Marie Sinclair. She's been in the bookkeeping department on the show since day 1. Do you have anything to say, Marie?
Well, working here is really the only thing that's kept me alive.
Okay, good luck. Candidate number 2 has been with the show the past 4 years and is simply known as the Masturbating Bear. Let's get him out here. All right. Now, let's be fair. Here we go. Should Marie get to stay? No! Or should the Masturbating Bear get to stay? The good people have spoken. We'll take a break. When we come back, Juliette Lewis is here. We'll see you